Picture this. I want you to really sit with this one because I guarantee someone watching right now is living this exact nightmare. A couple, two educated professionals, doing everything society told them to do. She is grinding in marketing, pulling in 62 grand. He is in it, making 71 combined. That is $133,000 a year. Top 25% of American households. On paper, these people should be absolutely crushing it. Maxed out 401 KS. Beach vacations. A growing investment portfolio. The kind of quiet financial confidence where an unexpected car repair is just a minor inconvenience, not a crisis. Instead, they're drowning. They've got maybe 2 months of expenses saved. Maybe, when their transmission crapped out last month, they slapped it on a credit card and prayed. They work full-time, sometimes more. They're exhausted. They barely see each other, except for a few zombie hours at night, when they're both too fried to have a real conversation. And here is the part that should make you angry. They did everything right. Degrees, the careers, the marriage, the combined finances, the house in a good school district. They followed the playbook page by page. So why the hell does it feel like they're sinking? Why does a household making over 6 figures feel one bad month away from financial disaster? If you've ever stared at your combined income and thought, we make too much money to feel this broke, then buckle up, because what I'm about to explain is going to flip everything you thought you knew about money upside down. My name is Warren, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time obsessing over why two-income households today are often worse off than single-income families from 50 years ago. If you and your partner are both grinding, both exhausted, and still can't figure out why it never feels like enough, hit that subscribe button. This one's going to sting. Here is the bullshit story we've all been sold since childhood. 2 incomes are better than 1. It sounds like basic math, right? If one person earning 50 grand can support a family, then 2 people earning 50 grand each should support that same family and have 50,000 left over for savings, investments, vacations, wealth. Simple addition. Except that is not what happened. Not even close. What actually happened is one of the greatest financial bait and switches in modern American history, and almost nobody is talking about it. There is a name for this phenomenon. It is called the 2-income trap, and it wasn't coined by some random YouTuber. It was coined by Elizabeth Warren. Yes, that Elizabeth Warren. Back in 2003, before she was a senator, when she was still a Harvard bankruptcy law professor, she and her daughter studied over 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy, and what they found should terrify you. Having 2 incomes didn't make families more financially secure. It made them more vulnerable, more likely to go bankrupt, not less. Let that sink in for a second. Working twice as hard, bringing home 2 paychecks, doing everything the modern economy told you to do, and you end up more likely to lose everything. That is not a personal finance failure. That is a systemic trap, and you're probably standing right in the middle of it, completely unaware. Let me take you back to 1970, because you can't understand the trap unless you understand the history. In 1970, about 43% of women were in the workforce. A typical middle-class family had one breadwinner, usually dad, and one parent at home, managing the household. And here is what nobody tells you: that single income was enough. Not barely scraping by, enough. Actually, genuinely enough. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, a median single-income family in 1970 could afford a median-priced home, spending only about 25% of their income on housing. They could put their kids in reasonably funded public schools, regardless of neighborhood. They could afford basic health care, a car, food, savings, the occasional vacation. They had margin, they had breathing room, and critically, they had a backup plan. If the breadwinner got sick or lost their job, the stay-at-home parent could enter the workforce. That second potential income was like an insurance policy, sitting in reserve, waiting to be activated in an emergency. Now fast forward to today. Female workforce participation is around 57%, and much higher among married mothers. In over 60% of married couples with kids, Both parents work. The two-income household isn't the exception anymore. It is the default. We've essentially activated the emergency backup plan as our normal operating mode. And here is where the math gets absolutely brutal. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, median household income in 2023 was about $74,000 adjusted for inflation. That is higher than what our parents and grandparents made. But look at what happened to costs. Median home prices in 1970, adjusted for inflation, were around $200,000 in today's dollars. In 2023, over $400,000. Housing costs have literally doubled. Healthcare spending per each household has increased by over 600% since 1970. Childcare, which barely existed as a major expense in the single-income era because someone was home, now costs the average family over $11,000 per year per child. In high cost of living areas, you are looking at 20 to 30 grand per kid annually. College costs have exploded by over 1,200% since 1980. Fixed costs of participating in the middle class have gone through the roof, while wages have barely crept up, and all that extra income from the second worker absorbed every single dollar of it. The two-income family today doesn't have double the security of the single-income family from 1970. They have less, because their fixed costs expanded to consume both incomes, and they burned their backup plan just to maintain baseline expenses. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, Warren, this doesn't apply to me. We're smart with our money. We didn't let lifestyle inflation eat our second income. And look, maybe you're the exception, but let me walk you through the cold, hard math of what actually happens to that second paycheck. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself about whether this applies to your situation. Let's say one partner makes $70,000 and the other makes $50,000. That is $120,000 combined. Feels like real money, right? Let's trace what happens to that $50,000 second income. First, taxes. Because of how progressive tax brackets work, the second income gets taxed at a higher marginal rate than if it were the only income. The first $70,000 fills up the lower brackets. That additional $50,000 comes in at the top of the stack, depending on your state. The effective tax rate on that second income could be 30 to 35% or higher when you factor in federal, state, and payroll taxes. So that $50,000 immediately becomes something like $32,000 to $35,000 in actual take-home pay. But we're just getting started. If you have kids, you need childcare. Average cost of daycare in America is about $15,000 per year per child. Got two kids? That is $30,000. You haven't even left the house yet, and your $50,000 income is now worth maybe $5,000. But wait, there is more garbage to pile on. Two working parents means two commutes. The average American commute costs about $5,000 per year in gas, maintenance, and vehicle depreciation. If you're paying for downtown parking, add another 2 to 3 grand. If you need a second car you wouldn't otherwise need, add the car payment, insurance, and registration. Call it $8,000 total for the second person's commuting costs. Your $50,000 second income is now in the negative. But let's keep going, because it gets worse. Two exhausted working parents means less time and energy for cooking, cleaning, home maintenance, and all the tasks that a stay-at-home parent would otherwise handle. Studies show dual-income families spend significantly more on convenience services. They order delivery, they hire cleaners, they buy pre-made meals, they eat out more frequently because nobody has the energy to cook after a 10-hour day, including commute. These exhaustion expenses can easily add another $5,000 to $10,000 per year, compared to a household where one person has time to manage domestic labor. So let's add it up, that $50,000 second income, minus $18,000 for taxes, minus $15,000 for childcare for one kid, minus $8,000 for commuting costs, minus $7,000 for convenience and exhaustion spending. You are at $2,000. That is not a typo. The net contribution of a $50,000 second income can realistically be as low as $2,000 per year, maybe less, maybe negative, especially if you have multiple children or live in a high cost of living area. Someone is working full-time, being away from their kids, missing family dinners, grinding through traffic, and the household is netting $2,000 for the year. That is $8 per workday. That is roughly $1 per HR. For what? And here is the psychological trap that really screws you, because the gross numbers look big, because you see that $120,000 combined income on your tax return. You feel like you should be doing well. You make spending decisions based on that $120,000. You buy a house based on what two incomes can qualify for. You take on car payments that two incomes can theoretically support. The bank looks at your combined income and says, yeah, you can afford this $400,000 mortgage. And technically, you can, as long as both incomes keep flowing forever, as long as neither of you gets sick, or laid off, or burned out, or needs to care for an aging parent, or has a child with special needs, or encounters any of the 1,000 unexpected life events that humans inevitably face. This is where the trap snaps shut. The single income family from 1970 had something the two-income family today doesn't have: financial flexibility. If the breadwinner lost their job, the stay-at-home parent could find work. Not ideal, but it was a backup. It was margin. It was resilience. The two-income family has already played that card. Both incomes are fully committed to the monthly nut. There is no backup, no reserve income to activate. If either partner loses their job, gets sick, or can't work for any reason, the family doesn't just lose that income. They often can't maintain their fixed costs, even temporarily, because those costs were sized for two incomes. This is why Warren's research found that two-income families were more likely to file bankruptcy. It is not because they were irresponsible. It is because they had no margin for error. They were operating at 100% capacity, with no reserves, like a car running with no oil in the engine. Everything works fine until it doesn't, and then everything breaks at once. A 2019 Federal Reserve Street UD found that nearly 40% of American adults could cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. 40%. And many of those people are in dual-income households, making solid money on paper. They're not broke because they don't earn enough. They're broke because their expenses expanded to consume every dollar of their combined earnings. They're one unexpected transmission repair away from financial catastrophes. And here is what really gets me. The expenses that consumed the second income weren't luxury expenses. They weren't boats and vacations and frivolous bullshits. They were housing, childcare, healthcare, education. They were the fixed costs of just participating in the middle class. Look at housing specifically, because this is where the bidding war effect becomes crystal clear. In the single-income era, families competed for housing based on one income. When two-income families became the norm, families suddenly had twice the purchasing power for the same houses. What do you think happened to prices? They got bid up, way up. If everyone has two incomes, then two incomes become the baseline requirement. Suddenly, you need two incomes just to afford what one income used to buy. It is like an arms race where everyone escalated and nobody won. The same thing happened with education. School districts are largely funded by property taxes, which means good schools exist in expensive neighborhoods. Parents naturally want to live in areas with good schools, so families started bidding up property prices in good school districts, using their two incomes to outbid others. Warren calls this the bidding war for educational opportunity. The price of admission to good public schools became a $400,000 mortgage instead of a $200,000 mortgage. You're not paying tuition, but you're paying the tuition equivalent in your housing costs. Once you're locked into that mortgage, you're locked into needing both incomes forever. You can't go back. You can't scale down to one income. The trap has closed. Now you might be thinking, okay, Warren, but what the hell? am I supposed to do? I can't just have my partner quit their job. We need both incomes to survive. I hear you. And that is exactly the trap talking. You need both incomes to survive the lifestyle you've built around both incomes. But here is the mindset shift that changes everything. You need to start treating the second income like it is temporary, even if it isn't. Most families do the exact opposite. They treat both incomes as permanent and guaranteed. They build their fixed costs accordingly. They buy the house that two incomes can afford. They lease the cars that two incomes can support. They enroll their kids in activities and schools that two incomes can pay for. Then they're stuck. They've built a life that requires two incomes to function, which means neither partner can ever stop working, even if they want to, even if life circumstances make it necessary. The alternative approach is what I call the one-income foundation. You structure your fixed costs, your non-negotiable monthly expenses, so they can be covered by one income alone. The second income then becomes entirely discretionary. Savings, investments, debt payoff, maybe some lifestyle enhancement. But the critical difference is that you could survive without it. Life wouldn't be as comfortable, but you wouldn't lose the house. You wouldn't go bankrupt. You'd have the margin that modern dual-income families have lost. Let me make this concrete. Say your household makes $130,000 combined, $75,000 and $55,000. Instead of taking on a mortgage that requires $100,000 or more in annual income to service, you take on a mortgage that can be comfortably covered by $60,000. Instead of two car payments, you have one or none. You live in a neighborhood that is maybe slightly less prestigious, with schools that are good but not elite. You buy the house that one income can afford, and you bank the difference. That second income, or at least the majority of it, goes straight into building wealth. Emergency fund first, then retirement accounts, then taxable investments. Every dollar you invest is buying back optionality. It is buying the flexibility to have one partner step back if needed, to take a career risk, to handle a health crisis, to be present for aging parents, to actually have a choice. This requires sacrifice in the short term. It means driving past the nice houses you could technically qualify for. It means explaining to friends why you're not upgrading your lifestyle, even though you got a raise. It means resisting the social pressure to spend like a dual-income family, because you're building like a single-income family. But here is the payoff. Within 5 to 10 years of this approach, something magical happens. The investments you made with that second income start generating their own income. Compounding takes over. And suddenly, you actually have what you thought dual incomes would give you. In the first place, genuine financial security. You're no longer two job losses away from crisis. You're building wealth instead of treading water. You can make decisions based on what is best for your family, rather than what is necessary to make the mortgage payment. I want to leave you with one final thought, because I think it reframes this whole conversation. The two-income trap isn't really about income. It is about flexibility. It is about margin. It is about having options. Our grandparents, with one income, had something we've traded away: the ability to absorb a shock, to change direction, to have one partner focus on raising kids or caring for family without the whole financial structure collapsing. We traded that flexibility for bigger houses and nicer cars and the appearance of prosperity. But appearances aren't wealth. Cash flow isn't security, and two incomes aren't better than one if both of them are already spent before they arrive. The families who thrive financially in the modern economy aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who've preserved their flexibility, who've refused to let their expenses expand to consume their income, who've kept their backup plan in reserve instead of deploying it just to keep up with the Joneses. You can earn your way out of a lot of problems, but you can't earn your way out of a trap you don't even know you're in. Now you know. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If this video made something click, if you're finally seeing why your six-figure household still feels broke, smash that like button. Subscribe if you want more content that challenges how you think about money. I'll see you in the next one.